Congratulations, you are on Lesson 5, Resilience. Resilience is another subject that's really important to students, especially by now in their passion projects. They may have been working on them for a while, they may have built up their discipline, but they may have also faced certain roadblocks. And resilience isn't just a topic that has to do with passion projects, but it has to do with life in general, because as much as you try really hard to make good choices and go down, great paths and all that stuff, you're going to face obstacles. So learning how to be resilient and learning how to get back up from your hurdles is really, really important. So let's just dive into what this lesson is about. Once again, lesson 5. Welcome back. So this lesson is going to consist of a few things: a usual icebreaker, a part where we're going to talk about resilience and worksheet questions. We're going to be talking about thoughts, behaviors, and feelings, and the cycle that interrelates them. We're going to be having breakout rooms, and we're going to be having our reflection questions as well. So before we start, I just want to give everyone a content warning, and I want you as a chapter head to please give this to everyone else as well. So part of resilient and being resilient, getting back up from hurdles, has to do a lot with mental health and your mentality and things like that. So we just want to give a content warning to everyone, and we want to make sure that you do that as well, just in case anybody, gets concerned about that and things like that. If the content is potentially sensitive for them, just remind them that they can also step away for a moment if necessary. We're not going to be diving too deep into mental health, but we just want to recognize that resilience and mental health do relate. So for the icebreaker, we're going to be talking about the new habit from last week and the passion project. So not something super related to resilience, but something all important as well. Then we're going to go have a little icebreaker that talks about imagining what happens if something very sad or very impactful happens before a big moment in your life, which you can read on the screen a little bit about that. We really want to encourage discussion, because a lot of the times, even if everybody hasn't been an Olympic champion like this person has, they may have faced a really big experience before, a concert, a recital, a big sports game, a big test. And so talking and being open about this with your students can really be helpful. That's something we really want to encourage in this lesson, especially, is to be open, create a safe space for people to talk. And then so the special icebreaker after this is just discussing how do you think the ice skater, was able to recover from what happened. And if you didn't read on the slide, essentially what happened is a very close loved one of hers passed away right before her performance, or a few days before her performance, which really impacted her. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is resilience, and how it's all about facing difficulties, bouncing back, and coping in a positive way and moving forward. So what's really important to notice is it's not just moving forward. It's not just facing an obstacle, being like, whatever, and then moving on with your life. It's actually taking the time to reflect and, coping and dealing with your feelings in a positive way, in a way that's good for you and healthy for you, and then moving forward and learning from those experiences. So you'll ask people, when do we need resilience? How can we build resilience? And those are kind of questions to get people talking. Once again, as you can see, you'll see the little chat bar sign here, which means you can encourage people to type in the chat if they're not comfortable talking, but also really do encourage people to talk. You can get it started on your own. Call on people who you know might be more comfortable to talk. The next part we're going to talk about is risk factors. So these are factors in our lives that break down our resilience, unfortunately, and protective factors, the factors in our lives that help us to become resilient. So with this topic comes some more information about controlling our protective and risk factors, what you expose yourself to, and recognizing that some of them are not in your control, but some of them are. We have some examples here, such as risk factors include things like poverty, not knowing where to find support, feeling disconnected, lack of communication skills, violence, or a family history of substance abuse, like some really serious topics. And then protective factors can include things like good coping skills, positive self-image, good communication skills, having supportive friends and family, and having good emotional wellness and good problem-solving skills as well. And so with that topic, we come to a building resilience worksheet where students will essentially choose two protective factors from the diagram and choose a strategy that will help them leverage it. So not only are they saying, it's kind of inevitable that I will face obstacles, but now they're preparing them for themselves for what happens when they do face it. Because as we really want to emphasize, is we're not saying here that you're not going to face obstacles if you're resilient. We're not saying that your life will magically go great. We're saying how to bounce back and know how to reflect upon them. The next part we're going to be talking about is the behavior, thoughts, and feelings cycle. And this is really important, and it's kind of the part where we kind of dive into mental health a little bit more, because as with all kind of leadership skills, confidence, resilience, discipline, all these things that we've been talking talking about, what really matters isn't just your actions or you writing down something or you writing down a goal or things like that, but really thinking about how your mind works and your mindset. So in this kind of activity, we talk about, why should we understand how the brain works and how might we subconsciously influence the outcome of a decision. So in this kind of activity, we're talking about changing our mental patterns, changing the patterns of how we think. So we have examples of a negative pattern and a positive pattern in some scenarios. So a negative pattern, for example, would have a negative thought, which would lead to a negative feeling and negative behavior as a result. And that would essentially be negative action that is taken. But a positive pattern would lead to a positive thought and a positive feeling and a positive behavior. So even if someone was facing a really difficult time, they could make their decisions in a more positive or positively impactful way. And so now we have a partner activity about changing partners, where people will break into partners and then people will try to change their negative thoughts from, let's just call it, more positive thought patterns. And it's important to know that positive thought patterns doesn't mean necessarily like you're just ignoring, the problem, where you're saying everything will turn out like 100% better than expected, but you're really dealing with it in a positive manner and a kind of growth mindset manner as well. So this is all about rewiring your brain and just remembering that, especially as teenagers or as young adults, your brain is constantly growing. So the way you think and the way you express your feelings and things are things that you can kind of be mindful of and develop and strengthen. You can really develop and strengthen these pathways to promote positive thoughts and outcomes, because the way you wire your brain will impact you for the rest of your life. And so then we have in a little activity, which is a scenario where this is an activity that's kind of like a group discussion, where we bring up a scenario where someone is interviewed for a job that they wanted but didn't get it, and that you can like imagine your thoughts and feelings. So some people might have had this happen to them in real life, some people not really. And then you can discuss how you would react to that and how you could be resilient. And then there's another question where you can more directly discuss the obstacles you're facing in regards to your passion projects right now. Once again, speak in the chat, or even better, speak with your voice if people are comfortable doing that, if your students are comfortable doing that. And then one thing we also remind students is to focus on what's in your control, because a lot of times, especially with students who come from different backgrounds, a lot of their circumstances aren't in their control, your socioeconomic background, things like that. So we have a worksheet for everyone, which is why you see this worksheet symbol, that is all about controlling the controllables. And students will find that in their worksheet workbook. We also have a little section that just some talks about some phone numbers that students can call depending on their location, or websites they can visit to talk to someone if they need to, if they feel like they're going through a hard time. Of course, if you're comfortable, you can offer yourself as a chapter head up as a resource to talk to. But if someone wants, official help for a very serious problem, you can provide them with these resources as well. Then we'll go into breakout rooms where you're talking about questions about resilience, building resilience in your daily life as a student, in your passion project, all these things. As a reminder, remember to change the thing in pink to make sure that people get their breakout room information there. Then we have reflection questions. Once again, these are not things that need to be discussed in class or in the session. These are just things that you can post in your Google Classroom that people can reflect on their own. And these are, kind of areas where people might use their workbook or, a notebook that they might have in relation to this program. And then finally, we'll have next steps, which you should also be posting on your Google Classroom or other virtual communication platform. And these are continue working on your passion project. Remember, students in one of their passion project assignments, one of the parts is creating an action plan. So making sure that they're not just saying, I worked for like 30 minutes on my passion project, but that they completed specific things is important. And just remind them that, you're not checking in on every single one of them every single week, but that they should, hold themselves accountable. As well, remember to complete the worksheets and the workbook is important if they didn't complete them during class. And then you can also remind them to check out resources like this slideshow and the relevant worksheets and all of that on your Google Classroom. Remember, you should also be posting these next steps on your Google Classroom in the form of announcements or things like that, so people can clearly access them. Then you can say thank you for listening, and we also just in this lesson have a little bit of an appendix that you can check out as well.